Dark castles, flickering torches, the toll of church bells echoing across a silent night. This is the world of the Middle Ages, a time of kings and knights, but also of hunger, plague, and mystery. A time when falling sick was more frightening than facing a sword on the battlefield, because medicine, as we know it today, did not exist. Instead, sickness was explained by religion, superstitions, and strange theories. And the cures? They were often more dangerous than the disease itself. Tonight, we will embark on a 2-hour journey through the strangest medical treatments of the Middle Ages. Treatments so bizarre, so shocking, and yet so real. They shaped the lives and deaths of millions. Prepare yourself, for what you are about to hear is both fascinating and horrifying.
To understand why people trusted such unusual remedies, we must first step back into their world. The Middle Ages, stretching roughly from the 5th to the 15th century, were times of uncertainty. Cities were crowded and filthy. Diseases spread quickly. Life expectancy was short. And above all, the Church ruled everything. The Church declared illness to be a punishment from God, or a test of faith. So the first step of healing was often prayer. Priests and monks became healers, copying ancient texts in candlelit monasteries. But medicine was not only religious, it was also astrological, magical, and based on theories inherited from the ancient Greeks. The most important of these theories was the doctrine of the 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. These were believed to flow through every human body. Health meant balance. Illness meant imbalance. If you had too much blood, you were feverish. Too much black bile, and you were melancholic. So what was the cure? Remove the excess, restore the balance. This belief led to some of the strangest treatments in history.
Let us begin with the king of medieval cures, bloodletting. It was the most common treatment of all. Whether you had a fever, a headache, stomach pain, or even pregnancy complications, the answer was always the same: drain the blood. Doctors believed that by releasing bad blood, the body would heal itself. Leeches were often used, their slimy bodies sucking away the patient's lifeblood. For the rich, doctors used silver knives, slicing open veins and catching the blood in bowls. But this was not gentle. Patients sometimes lost pints of blood until they collapsed. Many died, not from the disease, but from the cure itself. Yet, people believed in it, even kings and queens. In fact, it is said that George Washington, centuries later, died after being bled excessively. Bloodletting survived far beyond the Middle Ages, proving how powerful belief can be. Now imagine this. You suffer from splitting headaches, seizures, or terrifying visions. A medieval healer looks at you with pity and brings out a drill. Trepanation, the practice of drilling a hole into the human skull. Why? To release evil spirits believed to be trapped inside your head. To cure madness, epilepsy, and even migraines. In some cases, a piece of the skull was removed entirely. The patient, if lucky, survived, living with a permanent hole. If unlucky, the procedure ended their suffering forever. What's astonishing is that archaeologists have found skulls from the Middle Ages with signs of healing. This means some patients did survive and continued to live with open holes in their heads. It is one of the earliest and strangest forms of brain surgery.
After blood and skulls, let us turn to urine. Yes, in the Middle Ages, urine was considered the window to the body's health. Doctors collected it in glass flasks, holding it up to the light. They studied its color, its smell, even its taste. Was it pale? Perhaps the patient was weak. Was it red? A sign of liver problems. Cloudy yellow? A fever. The belief was so strong that entire books were written about the art of uroscopy, the study of urine. Illustrations showed rows of flasks, each color linked to a different disease. And so patients would line up, handing their urine to physicians like sacred offerings. Imagine the scene, a medieval doctor sniffing a flask, swirling it gently, then declaring, "You have a plague in your lungs." Disgusting to us, but for them, this was advanced science.
When herbs and prayers failed, animals became the medicine. Pig fat was smeared on wounds. Dog hair was pressed into cuts to close them. Cat blood was recommended for lung diseases. Even boiled frogs were prescribed for swelling. The logic? If animals were close to humans, perhaps their bodies held healing powers. One treatment advised placing a roasted mouse on the site of a toothache. Another suggested cutting a pigeon in half and strapping it to a plague victim's chest. Today, this sounds horrifying. But in an age without antibiotics or painkillers, people grasped at anything that offered hope. These animal cures often spread infection rather than healing, yet they persisted for centuries, passed down as tradition.
And then came the darkest shadow of all, the Black Death. In the mid-14th century, plague swept across Europe. Entire towns emptied. Bodies lay piled in streets. No cure existed, but that did not stop desperate attempts. Healers burned herbs and incense, filling rooms with thick smoke, believing it would cleanse the air. Others advised drinking crushed emeralds, powdered snakes, or even human excrement. Some believed the plague was spread by bad smells, so they carried flowers or vinegar-soaked sponges to their noses. And then there were the plague doctors. Dressed in long robes, gloves, and wide-brimmed hats, their most terrifying feature was the mask, a long beak stuffed with herbs and spices. They looked like birds of death, walking silently through infected streets. Did it help? Hardly. But in the terror of the plague, any cure was better than no cure. By the time it ended, nearly half of Europe's population was gone. And yet, these strange cures remained, whispered from healer to healer, passed on through generations. Toothaches were a nightmare in the Middle Ages. Dentists, as we know them today, did not exist. Instead, barbers or blacksmiths sometimes pulled teeth with pliers. But many believed tooth pain came from tiny worms living inside the teeth. The cure? Smoke them out. Healers burned herbs close to the tooth, letting the smoke drift into the mouth. If something moved or bubbled, they declared the worm had left. Other cures included rubbing the gums with honey, vinegar, or even human urine. Some desperate souls carried charms to prevent toothaches, while others prayed to Saint Apollonia, the patron saint of teeth. It was painful, often useless, but it was all they knew.
One of the most dangerous moments of medieval life was childbirth. Without modern medicine, many women did not survive the delivery room. So, midwives turned to both herbs and magic. Pregnant women were told to carry charms for protection. sometimes carved with holy names, sometimes filled with dried herbs. During labor, prayers were recited, candles lit, and amulets placed under pillows. Certain drinks were prepared, mixtures of honey, ale, and herbs meant to ease the pain. Some herbs truly helped, others were poisonous. Superstition also guided the process. If a woman's labor was long, they might place her husband's trousers over her belly, believing it would help the baby slip out. Even after birth, charms were tied to the newborn's cradle, guarding against evil spirits. Childbirth in the Middle Ages was not just a medical event. It was a battle between life, death, and unseen forces.
And then there were those who suffered in silence, the mentally ill. In the Middle Ages, madness was not seen as a medical condition, but as a possession. Evil spirits, demons, or curses were blamed. The cure? Exorcism. Priests read prayers over the patient, sprinkling holy water, chanting, and sometimes shouting at the supposed demon. If this failed, harsher methods followed. Some patients were chained to walls, beaten or starved, in the hope the spirit would leave. Others were taken to shrines, forced to sleep near relics of saints. Sadly, those with mental illness often endured torture disguised as medicine. Only in rare cases were herbs or calming treatments used. It was a dark chapter in the history of healing, where compassion was replaced by fear.
In the Middle Ages, even the stars had a say in medicine. Physicians consulted astrological charts before performing surgery. The position of the moon, the alignment of planets, the sign of the zodiac, all were believed to influence the body. For example, pulling a tooth when the moon was in Scorpio was thought to bring disaster. Cutting open a vein during the wrong alignment could mean death. And then there was bathing. Today, we think of baths as clean and healthy. But in the Middle Ages, bathing was a dangerous ritual. Warm water was thought to open the pores, allowing disease to enter the body. So some avoided baths altogether. Others timed them carefully, consulting astrologers for the safe days to bathe. Ironically, poor hygiene only worsened the spread of disease. But to medieval minds, the heavens and the bathhouse were connected in mysterious ways.
So why did people believe in such strange cures? Because the Middle Ages were a world of fear. Disease could strike at any moment. Plagues could wipe out entire families in days. With little knowledge and few options, people turned to anything that offered hope. Priests, astrologers, charms, herbs, even dangerous surgeries. The Church reinforced this, teaching that illness was often a punishment from God. Healing, then, was not just physical, it was spiritual. Every cure carried meaning. A charm protected the soul. A prayer calmed the heart. Even a painful bleeding was seen as cleansing sin. And so medicine was not about science. It was about survival, faith, and tradition. But hidden within the strangeness were the first seeds of modern science. Herbal medicine, for example. Willow bark was used to ease pain and later gave rise to aspirin. Poppy seeds were used for sleep, the origin of morphine. Honey applied to wounds prevented infection, something we still recognize today. The medieval world may have been ruled by superstition, but small sparks of truth existed. Over centuries, these sparks grew into the fire of modern medicine. So while we laugh at leeches and charms, we must also respect the path they paved. As our journey through the strangest medical treatments of the Middle Ages comes to an end, what have we learned?
that medicine has always been about more than cures. It is about belief, fear, hope, and the endless human struggle against suffering. Yes, bloodletting, trepanation, charms, and plague masks seem absurd to us now, but they were steps on the road that led to where we stand today, with vaccines, surgeries, and modern hospitals. And perhaps, centuries from now, people will look back at us, at our pills, our machines, even our surgeries, and wonder, how could they believe in such things? History reminds us that medicine is always evolving. From leeches to lasers, from charms to chemotherapy, it is the same human story, a story of survival, a story of hope.
If you enjoyed this journey into the strange world of medieval medicine, don't forget to share this story, subscribe for more history, and tell us in the comments which treatment shocked you the most.